Thanks, Jess. Hi, I'm Claire, I'm an addict. This is the least favourite part of the 12-step programme for me. I really don't enjoy doing shares. And then what makes it worse is I get him and Michelle says, "Oh, do you mind if we record you?" It's just like, yeah. But I do it because, like a lot of things I do in recovery, I do it because I'm told that's what's going to help me stay clean. And above everything else, that is the one thing I'm determined to do, is stay and not just be clean, but continue to have the psychic change that I've had as a result of going through the steps, because the person I am today is so completely different to the person I was not even when I just arrived here, which was quite a long time ago now, but even way before that. You know, like I have changed so much even from before I even picked up drugs and alcohol. Because it's like when I look back, you know, now I have an understanding of what a spiritual malady is. Obviously, you don't get taught that at a very early age, but I can look back long before I ever picked up drugs and alcohol, and I can look back at me as a child, me growing up, you know, long before that stuff came along, and I can see the spiritual malady in a really early age. I was just always so uncomfortable in my own skin. I was always full of a lot of self-loathing. I was very insecure growing up, and there was no reason for that. You know, like I'm not somebody who had trauma as a child. You know, I didn't have a particularly difficult childhood. You know, although when I went into treatment, I developed one because I felt I had to have one to fit in. Because you know, my mum and dad tried to give us everything that they could, everything that they didn't have, but I was just so miserable, you know, like from a really early age, just so unhappy. And people used to say that to me. They used to say, "I don't know what is wrong with you. Nothing is enough. You're never happy." You know, like I used to hear that continually. So I grew up just feeling, you know, just pretty shit about myself really, and not understanding what was wrong with me, and everyone was telling me there obviously clearly was something wrong with me. So I think from the moment I picked up a substance, which to start with was alcohol, it was a relief really, because it was like all those messages on voices I used to hear in my head telling me I was no good and I wanted to be someone else, and you know, all this stuff, I had this negative view of myself. It just stopped. So from the moment I started drinking, I just didn't want to stop then, because it just gave me that ease and comfort. But from the moment I had a drink, I say a drink, I've never just had a drink. Even the first time I had a drink, which was when I was about 14, you know, I think I drank a bottle of neat vodka, passed out, paralytic, got taken home by the police. And my using, that is the story of my using. You know, every drug I ever moved on to, and I progressed through them all, it was the same. You know, I think I shared it last week, you know, like nothing was ever enough. You know, I had no cut-off point. The words never came out of my mouth of like, no, I think I've had enough, thank you. It just was a phrase I never used. And, you know, there was some parts of my using at the beginning that were quite fun. You know, I was part of the whole rave scene in the late 80s and ecstasy and dancing in woods for days on end and ending up in weird people's flats in the Forest of Dean and not even knowing how I got there. And, you know, there's some of that I wouldn't change for the world. I loved that I was a part of that. But obviously, you know, it progressed from there, you know, and my using, you know, it's hard for me to think about my using because I've been in recovery for quite a while. And sometimes when I talk about my life using, it's so far removed from who I am today. It's hard to imagine that was my life, but I'm also very aware that I'm one step away from it as well. You know, like I'm under no illusion that if I don't do what I need to do for my recovery, I'll just go straight back there. So, but my use, you know, there was nothing glamorous about my using. I'm not somebody that travelled the world. I never made it outside Bristol or Glastonbury. It was heroin, it was crack, it was dark, it was seedy. I did a lot of things, you know, that I always said I would never do, but it always got to that point where I did. You know, it was shit. There's no other word to describe it, but it was just, it was shit. And I got sent to treatment. I had a few little different attempts at stopping using. I got sent to treatment, you know, quite young. And, you know, I went into treatment and I had no idea what I'd let myself in for. I thought I was a heroin addict that needed to be detoxed. So I was sent there by the courts. And, you know, I was really shocked when I went in there and they said it was an abstinent-based program. I didn't even know what that word meant. I really thought I was in there to detox from heroin, and then I'd be able to come out 6 weeks later and probably smoke a bit of crack on the weekend, and life would be great. So it was a bit of a shock to go in there and find out that that was not the plan. And then they started telling me that I was a problem, and that was even more of a shock because you know, it was nothing to do with me. And I'm not really somebody, I have to try and fly through this because to fit in 25 years in 15 minutes is really hard because it's been quite a journey. But I'm not somebody that came into recovery and said, oh, I'm just going to grab this with both hands. I'm going to do exactly as I'm told. I'm going to do everything that's suggested because I don't want to use anymore. That wasn't really my experience. My experience is that I didn't want all the bad things to keep happening to me. I didn't like the consequences of my using. I didn't want them anymore, but I wanted to take the easiest way I could possibly find through it, which involved me not really taking the program very seriously to start with. You know, because what I found was take the drugs and the alcohol away from me and I was suddenly left with me. And there's a period at the beginning, because nobody said to me at the beginning, it's going to get worse before it gets better. You know, it was a shock that obviously I put down the drugs and alcohol and all that self-loathing, that low self-esteem, that feeling really shit about myself returned in abundance. You know, and if you don't quickly grab the program, get a God in your life, you know, and do this stuff, you're left in not a great place. And that's where I was for about a year. Like when I first came to treatment and I came down to Bournemouth and to meetings were really different then, really, really different. And, you know, if anyone talked about the steps or God, you were called a big book basher. That was like the phrase. It wasn't very cool. You know, I used to sit in the back of the meetings, flirting with all the guys, you know, not really taking it very seriously, and wondered why I felt so shit. I was in real denial about being an alcoholic. I think because from the moment I started using drugs, I never really drank after that. So I was in real denial about being an alcoholic. And I never really spoke about that. And when we came out of treatment, it was, you know, everyone was just going clubbing and drinking Red Bulls and thinking we were having a great time. And then, you know, one day I relapsed on alcohol. I seriously believed that I could socially drink. I really thought that I could be a social drinker. But there was absolutely nothing sociable about my drinking whatsoever. And I very quickly came to realise that I was an alcoholic because I drank alcoholically. I made it back into recovery quite quickly, thank God, because I think I knew where it was heading, and I was really lucky that there was a couple of people that had been in the rooms with me, that kept reaching out. Because to start with, I drank and nobody knew I drank. I kept going to meetings and pretending everything was okay. I was so nuts. Me without a program is just insane. I had a 1-year clean time meal because I couldn't tell my friends that I'd relapsed. I had to do a share, knowing I'd had a drink the night before for my wife. Oh, honestly, it was so bad, and I just couldn't tell people. It was not good. But yeah, eventually, obviously, people did find out I was drinking, and I came back in to the rooms, and I knew I had to do it differently. I did want a different life for myself, and I was prepared to put the action in. So I came in, I got a sponsor, I started going through the steps. Those 12 steps, they are the most amazing process anyone can go through. The psychic change I had as a result of going through those steps is unbelievable to me. The person I have become as a result of not just going through the 12 steps, but learning to live those steps in my life on a daily basis. They help me with every area of my life, and I'm so grateful. How I feel about myself is so completely different from how I used to feel about myself before. How I deal with life is so completely different to how I used to deal with it before. And life can be really tough. Like this year at the moment is absolutely wiping the floor with me. I don't think I've had such a difficult time in recovery. I feel quite emotional than I'm having at the moment. But at no point have I wanted to use. And that to me is amazing. I want to run away. That's my main one. I sometimes pick up my dog at the moment and I go, let's run away. Just me and you. Just me and you, Tinks. That's my go-to. I just want to run away. I don't want to face life. But at no point have I wanted to use. And that is amazing. And that is all about the 12-step program and that connection with God. They are at the moment, the time I feel at peace is when I'm in a meeting or when I'm praying, and I'm so grateful to have that stuff in my life. And someone said to me the other day that this isn't about God won't give you what you can't handle. This is about God won't give you what he can't handle. And that's really helping me at the moment, because I really feel like I'm really up against it. So much fear and anxiety, and I just couldn't have coped with stuff like that. Even at the beginning, if you told me, this is some of the stuff, when I look back over the years, the stuff I've dealt with in recovery has been sometimes it's been a lot, and I haven't had to use, and that is, I still think, wow, that is amazing. I haven't had to change the way I feel. And I feel so free because of that. I've gone off on a little tangent. There's been a lot of change in my life. I've left a job. I left my job. I've worked for the same organisation nearly all my recovery. And it was working in the field of addiction, and I was so privileged to do that job and work with the people that I that I worked with, and I'll always be grateful for that experience. But it was time for a change. But it's been really scary, you know, like that job has been like my identity, like since literally I was a couple of years clean. So to take the step of leaving, you know, it was quite scary, but I'm in total faith that I'll be okay. I don't even know what I'm going to do yet. I've left. I haven't even got another job. But I know I'll be okay. I'm just in total faith, you know, like it's time to just regroup a little bit, and it's time to do something different. And that is the stuff that recovery gives us the tools to be able to do. And that is amazing. I came to CA when I was about 10 years clean. I'd ended up without a sponsor in another fellowship through one reason or another. And then I kind of like procrastinated on finding another sponsor, which I don't recommend to anybody, you know, like please never leave yourself unsupervised, because me unsupervised by another woman is quite dangerous, really, because I'll get, you know, like if you're not taking inventory and doing that with somebody else, like for me, I get really resentful very quickly, and I become quite self-righteous. And I can justify all my resentments till the cows come home. And I was dying, and I didn't even know. It was like I'd spiritually gone to sleep, and I had no idea what was happening for me. And you know, I slowly became really spiritually unwell. I think I rang somebody, told them how bad I was feeling, tried to blame it on loads of outside issues, and luckily she had the courage to say to me, "What have you been doing for your recovery recently?" And obviously it transpired that I wasn't really doing a lot, and she brought me to a CA meeting, and hadn't really been for a long time to CA. When I got clean, CA was very young in Bournemouth. It was a bit nutty. I don't think anyone in the meeting had more than 30 days clean time. I think you could buy a bit of gear at a CA meeting in those days. You could definitely buy tobacco and cigarettes. You had to wear Reebok Classics, otherwise you weren't really a part of, you know, like it was really mad. So not really many people went to those meetings unless you wanted a bit of gear or some tobacco. But then like this movement started, which to start with went a bit crazy, didn't it? And but you know, she said, "Why don't you come to a CA meeting and maybe look at having a different experience?" And so I came to a CA meeting, and I loved it. It was just so positive. There was such a real strong message of hope and recovery in the meeting, and it blew my head off. I loved it, and I asked a woman to sponsor me in the meeting. You know, like I think I was 10 years clean. I think she was 3 years clean. Is that how long I've got left? Oh my God, that's crazy. But I loved the passion that she spoke about the program, and I just thought, you know, I know she can help me. You know, it doesn't take long. If you disconnect from this program, it doesn't take long to get back into it and start feeling better. But, you know, it was the first time I'd ever gone through the book of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I'd been in another fellowship. And it was the first time I'd gone through the doctor's opinion. And that was just, you know, I feel really like it was such a pivotal point for me going through that, because I'd spent years going to meetings saying I was an addict, and I didn't really understand what that even meant. And it was for the first time I actually understood what it meant and what the illness was about, and it blew my head off. It was amazing. And I went through the steps with her, and I had such a different experience. You know, it just took my recovery to a different level, and I've stayed ever since. And I'm so determined to stay. You know, like, I think as time goes on, like, I miss those early days. People in early days would be like, oh, no, you don't. But I do, because, you know, when you're first around, there's such a great feeling of unity, and there's loads of you around, and you're going to meetings and you're going for coffees, and it's such a great time to be in recovery. And then as time goes on, you know, you get a life, you get responsibilities, it gets harder. And then what I've experienced recently is when you stay around even longer, people stop coming to meetings, and not necessarily because they've started using, although, you know, some people make a decision to have a drink again, and that might be their reason for leaving. But other people just think, I don't need to go to meetings anymore, I'm so clean, and then they stop coming to meetings. And my illness grabs hold of that. My illness will grab hold of that and think, well, if they don't need to come to meetings, why do I need to come to meetings? Or maybe I've been clean long enough now that I don't need to come to meetings anymore, and why do I still need to see my sponsor? Although I am pretty low maintenance, I have to say that. She's not here, but she would be like saying something if she was here. So it, you know, and my illness grabs hold of that, but I have to push against that. 'Cause I know I need to be here, because although a lot of those people, they don't use, you know, like, I don't see them happy, joyous and free. I don't see them spiritually fit and alive with the programme. I see them just, they all go a bit dry drunky, don't they? You know, dry drunk syndrome. So it's hard, but it's like, I have to stay. Like, this isn't just about not using and drinking. For me, it is about staying spiritually fit, and the only way I stay spiritually fit is by doing everything that's suggested, which I do battle with sometimes. My default position is to be quite undisciplined and quite willful, and that for me is the cunning part of the illness for me, because it's like, you know, if you do this and this, you'll feel fantastic. So I do it for a while and then I stop doing it, and it's like, why do I do that? Why can I not just consistently do it? Because I feel good as a result. You know, this illness, and it definitely centres in my mind, that's for sure. And but it's like, I want to stay growing as a person. I want to keep moving forward. You know, like, every time I go through the steps, I learn so much more about myself. And that's why I'll stay, and I'll keep doing everything that's suggested. And I don't want to move away, although sometimes I do find it hard to stay. And I think, you know, all the stuff that's been going on in my life this year, I don't know if I would have got away with that. You know, like, I don't know if I would have had enough as a defence. Maybe, you know, it might have been different. Maybe I would have started to think, you know, maybe I need to have a little drink or something to get through it, which is where it is always my go-to. But I'm very grateful for the programme, and I'm grateful, you know, like, the support network I've got in the meetings, you know, which now is totally made up of women, you know, and I'm so grateful for that. I've got the most amazing women in recovery in my life. I don't know where I would be without them and their support, and I'm hoping that I give them the same support back, because my default position is to be a really selfish and self-centered person. But this program has taught me so much about being a good friend, about being a good mum, about being a good sister, about being a good daughter. You know, all that the program has taught me how to do all that stuff. And you know, and I can sit here and say, I think I do a pretty good job. You know, like, not being big-headed, but yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, there's loads more I could say. It's hard to fit it all in, but yeah, it's thank you for letting me share.